Thank you.
The chair now recognizes the gentleman from Pennsylvania, Mr. Fitzpatrick, for 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you all for being here. I'll just address the question in the entire panel. It's the same question I asked Secretary Kelly when he appeared before us regarding visa waiver. So we all know the threats of entry through various mechanisms, whether it be the northern border, the southern border, the refugee program, the legal immigration process, as was the case with Malik regarding San Bernardino. But I want to address the visa waiver program for a second, to the extent that any of you have researched or put some thought into that. 38 countries, roughly, part of the program started in the 80s based on the Human Development Index, which is basically higher income countries. That was the old model back then. We live in a very different world in 2017 than existed back in the 80s. The threats have changed, and terrorism is no longer a regional threat. It is a global threat, and there's a lot of really dangerous people that live in really nice places like Copenhagen and Brussels and Paris and London, and there's some really good people that live in really tough places. The visa waiver program, I think last year about 70,000 came in. Currently, I think there's about 150,000 overstays. It's a dangerous, I believe, a dangerous situation we're in right now, when you have a lot of people that have been radicalized in Western Europe that can essentially come in through the waiver process that goes unchecked. With all the billions of dollars we spend on national security, that seems to be a glaring gap. So I just wanted your perspective on that.
Congressman, I know I have colleagues at the Heritage Foundation who have done an awful lot of work on the visa waiver program and are currently supportive of it, although recognized some of the threats that you outlined. I would like to be able to give you a fuller answer with written testimony, if that's okay.
Just real quick, this is there are many reasons why I don't think the travel ban, for example, works and is effective at all. This is one of them. So if you look in European nations in terms of how they say the arrests or threats have manifested there, in 2016, Europol says there were 718 jihadist terrorist arrests across the European countries, many of whom obviously have a visa waiver in effect. Only 22 of those arrests were returnees from Iraq and Syria. And 77 of the 718 were returnees from any battlefield, so Iraq, Syria, elsewhere. So 718 means that basically most of the threats that they're dealing with in Europe, who can more easily get into the U.S. via the visa waiver program from European countries, are actually already residents or citizens in Europe. And I think that basically that doesn't mean that all those 718 are potentially going to do that. All I'm saying is that if I were looking to plan something in the U.S. and I wanted to get somebody to go do it, I would use somebody who could get in that way because it's easier.
Mr. Jocelyn, could you provide the committee with that information when you get it?
Sure. It's actually it's in my written testimony, but I can provide more on that one.
I would just add to what Tom said. We're talking about those arrests, and correct me if I'm wrong, but those are people that didn't travel to Iraq and Syria. So those are Europeans that never left. Dan Byman had a piece in Lawfare either today or yesterday talking about frustrated foreign fighters. So in some senses, countries can be a victim of their own success. We spent a lot of time preventing people from going, right? But now they're home and they're still intent to attack or travel elsewhere to places, including the United States, to launch an attack. If I can just quickly, one thing we know about terrorist organizations is that they're highly adaptable. The Islamic State in particular has found a way around sending people from one battlefield to the other, and that's, as I'm sure all of you know, the virtual entrepreneur model, where they're using encrypted comms to get in touch with people that never left a place to actually direct them through every step of how to conduct an attack. David Gartenstein Ross and others have written about this extensively.
I yield back.
Thank you.